Hi, I'm Herb Stevens, the skiing weatherman, here for another installment of Weather Weenies from Jiminy Peak in the Berkshires, just a few days before the holidays get started. And the upcoming weather situation is on the minds of riders and skiers all over the place. So let's try and break it down for you as we head toward those holidays. First of all, a jet stream map. We have a trough of low pressure. You notice how the pens are working this week? We finally got some technology, some grease pencils. We have a little trough here, and it broadens out across the west, and then it sort of flattens out, and we have more of a northwesterly flow over the central and northern Appalachians all the way up into Maine. In fact, in Maine, there's a real interesting thing going on as I tape this on Tuesday the 22nd, and that is the storm that brought all the heavy snow to the coastal zones from the Carolinas up to southern New England is up here in the Maritimes, and a warm front, and it's off this map, a warm front went all the way around the storm, and a warm front is now moving down through Maine from the northeast. It's called a backdoor warm front, and it's going to set off snow, and some pretty heavy snow in the mountains of northern Maine, extreme northern New Hampshire, and northern Vermont as we head through midweek. But the big story is what's going to come out of this trough in the west. The next couple of days, by Wednesday or so, I guess that's tomorrow, we're going to see a low pressure system form here somewhere down in West Texas around El Paso. Out in the West Texas, no, never mind. The low is going to head northeastward, and that's really critical. Remember, counterclockwise flow moves around an area of low pressure, and if this storm were to go into the eastern lakes, the circulation would flood warm air up the east coast, and all of the gains that the snowmakers have made in the last couple of weeks, they go right down the toilet. It is going to be a bit of a mess, but not as bad as some people think, and I'll explain why in a minute. So we've got the low pressure center, and it's going to be a strong one. It's going to the western lakes. Here's Chicago. It's going to go up just to the west of Chicago. The ski areas in the upper peninsula of Michigan and in Wisconsin and Minnesota, they're in line for a nice shot of snow, a nice gift from Santa just before Christmas. That'll happen on Christmas Eve. And as that storm gets into the western lakes, this trough will be moving bodily eastward. This storm is running into a big blocking pattern over eastern Canada, so it will not keep going into Canada. It'll just sort of peter out here in the northern lakes. Meanwhile, as the trough moves east, the energy of that trough is going to interact with the ocean and form another low pressure center, probably east of Maryland or Atlantic City, New Jersey, somewhere around there on Christmas Day. Now, at the surface, with high pressure to the north, low-level cold air will hang in east of the Appalachians. Remember, we've got snow cover all the way down into the Carolinas now, and that's going to sustain the cold air. But as the trough moves east, at the upper levels, the mid and upper levels, there will be milder air coming north along the eastern seaboard, and that means that the depth of the cold air is going to be eroded. What that means is snow, sleet, freezing rain, and eventually, south of about Interstate 70, the Pennsylvania Turnpike, there'll be some plain rain. But because the primary low is so far to the west, the amount of warm air that comes north will be limited. And by the time that the secondary low takes over and goes up over Cape Cod the day after Christmas, its circulation, counterclockwise, will reinforce the idea of colder air hanging in there at the low levels. So in Pennsylvania and up into parts of New York, I think you're going to see a little bit of everything come out of the sky, and that's going to be the case in southern New England as well. Right along the coast in southern New England, like at Yawgoo Valley, Rhode Island, where they got 24 inches of snow the other day. They're going to get a little rain on Saturday, but then it's going to turn colder all over the east as that storm goes into the Maritimes, and over the weekend the flow will turn northwesterly. We'll see some lake effect snow in parts of New York and Pennsylvania and even in northern New England. And then as we get into the holiday week, I'll close with this. There'll be another trough in the west, and it'll have a lot of energy from the southern branch of the jet stream that's being pumped up by the El Nino that's out in the middle of the Pacific. This storm early next week, around the 28th, will be affecting the central and southern Rockies. It too will come out and go across the country. So along about New Year's Day, we'll probably be dealing with a major storm threat in the eastern United States. So to sum all of this up, we've had a storm in the west about 5 days ago. Central and southern Rockies got healthy. Another one is going to happen this weekend. They'll get late this week. I got to keep track of what day it is. That storm will eventually go up to the western lakes. A secondary will form along the mid-Atlantic coast Christmas night. There'll be mixed precipitation south of the Pennsylvania Turnpike and actually all the way up to about the New York Thruway. Pretty good snowstorm in far northern New England. But the good news about this is that the warm air, if milder air, it's not really that warm, won't be around for very long. Colder air sweeps in the east to start next week, and meanwhile, at that point, our eyes will turn to yet another storm coming out of the southern plains, and that promises to bring some excitement to the east along about New Year's Day. Now, if you'd like to get details on the snow report in your area, just go to snowcountry.com, click on the videos for the skiing weatherman, and otherwise, have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Festivus, and the skiing weatherman and the Weather Weenies will reconvene next week from Bristol Mountain, New York.